Hello, my name is Jon Witt and this is a Hatha yoga class. So if you've never taken my class before, welcome. If you've taken it before, welcome back. I'm glad that this class is providing good practice. That's my intent, is to give understanding and ways of how to manipulate themselves through a practice where it's not always so straightforward. So I like to give tips along the way in terms of giving you other options in terms of practice. So I'm going to be working on some pressing strength today. So if you had a shoulder injury, what I'm going to be using would help with that. But there are some things that you may not want to be doing, and obviously that's good. And I've said this over again in terms of practicing online. You know, you can choose what to use, and I think that should be available in any kind of setting. But I'm gonna start in a standing position. At some point in terms of balance, I think a wall is really great. So the wall could be in front of you, it could be beside you, and it could be a chair as well if you don't have either a wall that could be in front or side beside you. So my feet are just about the width of my shoulders, and I'm just gonna be moving my pelvis just in a rotation, and it doesn't have to be very much. And if you had something going on with your knee, don't move over your capacity. Don't move beyond your own capacity. So I'm just turning the pelvis, which will turn the upper body. And then over time, right, you can be more specific and rotating from your torso rather than your hips. So maybe one area moves better than the other. And that's something that you'll see with time. But if you had a shoulder injury, this is something that I would use. I wouldn't be swinging my arms, but I am going to be moving my arms. So when I'm moving my hips, I'm moving my arms. I'm not trying to move my arms. I'm just naturally letting them relax. But as I'm pivoting, my pelvis, my torso's following along in that line, and then my arms are moving as well. So as again, I could just be moving my pelvis, which again will help with your motor skills of your lower body and will help with your upper body as well. So just a few more as I'm rotating, as I'm moving my arms, right, just to help relax them. And then coming into the middle, and I'm going to take my arms up to the sides and my thumbs are up, and I'm turning my arms back in space. So if I had a shoulder injury, I don't have a TheraBand today, this is what I would be using. It's just basic rotations of the shoulders. So rotating forward and down and in, and then rotating back, and then rotating forward and down. And with something like this, because when I teach people publicly, they really don't do it long enough. They'll do it where it's uncomfortable, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tiring, right? But as you get stronger, it won't be so difficult to do. But I'm rotating forward and in, and I'm rotating back. And then, as you do it, then it's going to help you in taking your arms overhead. So I'm going to do a couple more. So forward, down, and in, and rotating back in space. And with any range of motion, you can add you can add strength to it, and maybe the range is increasing. So I'm not really so hung up on that, but over time, right, maybe your arms do move more into a rotation. I'm going to take the arms into a cactus position, and in cactus, I'm retracting my shoulders, and then I'm protracting, and I'm retracting, and I'm protracting. And your arms, they might be tired, right? You could bring them down, but I'm going to take my arms up overhead and try to get my shoulders up towards my ears. So really reaching up through the arms, and then taking the arms back into a cactus position, and then back up. So you could do a number of these as far as repetition. So I like a shorter hold, especially for those of you that are tighter. It's okay to hold for a few seconds and then to come out, because, to you being in overhead positions for 30, 60 seconds, that's just unreal. I mean, you could do it, but you might actually feel like tighter. So just one more elevated position, taking the arms up. Try to keep the ribs in and see where you hold your weight in your feet. So if you're leaning to one side more than the other, try to bring the weight into the opposing side. I'm gonna take the arms back to cactus and then just bringing the arms down. So I'm gonna do some lower body mobility, some strength work, nothing too much, but I think as you increase the range in your legs, it'll help with your hips, it'll help with your knees. A lot of this is based on your feet. So you don't have to do this, but if you had a pair of slippers around or shoes around, if you elevate your heels in any squatting position, it's much easier on the knees. So if you put something underneath your heels, it works really, really well. I'm just gonna have my feet a little bit wider than my hips, and I'm bending my knees and I'm lifting my toes, and then I'm lowering the toes and lifting the toes. So I'm just in a bit of a quarter squat, and this is a good level to get stronger in. So I'm lifting the toes, I'm lowering the toes, I'm gonna lift them again, and then lower. And then I'm coming up, and then I'm gonna come up on the toes, I'm gonna lift the heels off the floor, and just kind of see where you hold the weight within the toes, because you might be off on one toe more than the other. So just look over the left shoulder if you can, and look center, and look over the right, and look center, and then bringing your feet down and just look straight up. Don't tilt the upper body back, just move the head up in space. So as the head's lifting, measure your nose to the ceiling. So kind of see if you're turning your head a specific way, and then bringing the head down, and if you can, bring the chin into the chest. So just bringing the chin in. I'm using more effort if I need it. Chin can eventually touch the chest. And then look forward, and one more time, look up, straight up. And then bringing the chin down into the chest, just to stretch out the back of the neck. And then back to neutral. So I'm going to go back into the squats again, but you could stick with just the quarter squat to keep your legs strong, and but over time I'm going to increase the range each time I do it. So if you do need counterbalance, you bring the arms more forward, right? But just find a level that's relatively easy for you and that you can hold it. And then as you're in this, maybe you can sit a little bit lower, and then bringing yourself up. Lower isn't necessarily better, but over time, right, the range will improve, and maybe you can sit lower. But I'm bending, nice and slow. I'm bringing myself up. Again, the quarter squat is great. You'll notice your legs get stronger. It's not a lot of pressure on the knees. But like I said, if I'm like on a slant, it's so good because it's really the legs that are supporting you. So it's very taxing on the legs, but less pressure in, like, say, the joint of the knee. So when I'm sitting, maybe I'm sitting a little bit lower. Not that you have to sit as low as I am. All right, just one more time, I'm gonna sit back with the hips. This is really good to maintain the flexing of the hips. So hip flexion, sitting back. Again, you could maybe hold any of the ranges as you're in this, and bringing yourself all the way back up. So, if you told me what I can't squat because of my ankle, I can't squat because of my knee, there's very specific things you could do to make that better or easier for yourself. I'm going to go back into swinging the arm, but in a different way. So my arms are out to the side. I'm going to be transferring the weight from one side to the other. But again, if moving the arms is not good for your shoulders, just hold these static positions. But I'm going to be moving my right arm to my left, and then bringing it around and transferring the weight. So it's a bit of coordinated movement, but very good in opening up the chest and just finding a good rhythm. So it's just kind of taking the arm up and down, but with it's not so much relaxation. There is a bit of strength in doing this. Right, just a few more, but it'll just be easier in terms of taking your arms overhead, or in yoga, which is really common, is taking the arm overhead, but like in like a side bend. And then bringing the arms down. So you could shake it out a little bit. I'm gonna come to the top of my mat. I really believe in lunges and not so much like forward bending. I will do some forward bends today, but I'm not gonna do a repetitive forward bend like practice, which is really common. I'm gonna be a little bit more specific in adjusting the hamstrings and preparing someone, say, for like plow, right? I think it's not really, you're not spending enough specific time in what actually should be practiced. And if you had that, then getting into that position can be much safer and way more beneficial rather than just kind of swinging for the fences and just trying it, right? So I'm coming forward with my feet and I'm going to step my left foot back and I'm in a diagonal stance. So my right foot's towards the right side of my mat, my left side's on the left, and I'm trying to get my tailbone to move down, and I'm just going to have my legs straight for a few breaths, right? This could be the position. When the heel is up, it's more difficult to balance, which I think is good. You know, it's going to help you. But I'm going to take the arms up overhead, and like I did earlier, I'm going to try to get the shoulders up towards the ears. And with this, I'm actually going to take the heel up off the floor. So I'm making it a little bit stronger in the front leg, and that you have to use more effort to keep yourself here. So like if I was practicing for hours, you know, I would have the heel down. But if I was practicing a short amount of time, very good to have the heel up, because then it's going to help in getting the legs to be stronger. So just have the right leg straight and the heel down, take the arms down, and just shake it out if you needed to. I'm going to do one more on this side. I'm going to take the arms up. I'm bending the right knee, and if I can, I'm going to lift the heel, right? Not that you have to do that, but like I said, it's going to make it a little bit more taxing in the front leg where it's going to stretch it out more. As it gets easier, you know, then you can increase the range where you're sitting lower. Not that you have to sit as low as I am, right? But I'm not touching the floor with my knee. I could, right? It's just above the floor. Then I'm going to straighten back out, bringing the arms down, and I'm going to step my left foot forward. And then as I'm here, I'm just going to do a basic side bend. So I'm leaning to the left. My right side is stretching out. You could let the head relax to the shoulder. You could technically lift the head, right? But I'm just kind of relaxing into this position. I'm picking up the right side more if I need it, or I'm just in a passive position. And lifting yourself up and then going to the right. And then as you go to the right, then it's the left side that you're really creating more space on. And each side will have its own set of benefits. So maybe one side is, you know, tighter for you. Maybe it's more restricted for you. My tailbone's down if I want to be more technical. I'd say you're a person, it's common in women. It's common in men too to just kind of be more in an anterior tilt. Some people have posterior tilts, and it can be from scoliosis. And then bringing yourself back up, and then just bringing the tailbone down. Just feel the difference. And this is what I'm talking about in these positions: plank, the lunging positions, warrior 1, warrior 2. You know, getting the tailbone to move down can really be very good for the pelvis, very good for the lower back. I'm gonna go onto the left side. So my left leg is forward, my right leg is forward. I'm gonna step my right foot back. Again, I'm on a diagonal stance. My legs are straight, and I'm just bringing the tailbone down, and I'm in this upright position, right? But I'm gonna bend my left knee, and then as I bend my left knee, I'm gonna take the arms overhead, trying to get the shoulders up towards the ears, and lifting the heel. So I'm lifting my heel up, and as I'm lifting my heel, I'm lifting my pubis, and you'll see which side is stronger, which side is more flexible, right, as you're doing this. And then I'm gonna have the left leg straight. I can take the arms down, right? But you don't have to sit as low as I am, and I've said this before. At some point, you know, breaking alignment terms is really what you're doing to advance. So going beyond that it can be very good for yourself, whether you're a beginner or not, right? You can take the arms overhead, you can bend your left knee, you can lift your heel. Just knowing your own capacity, like I said earlier, is such a great practice in itself. Just understanding when to do more, when to not, right? So if I'm sitting lower, right, it'll add more stress in a specific area. And if I told you what I feel in the position, it's not necessarily what you should feel, right? We're all different, with different anatomy, but I'm really reaching up and I'm lifting through the left heel, right? Then pressing through the left foot, bringing the arms down and stepping the right foot forward. Just a basic position, just basic standing position. But I'm going to work a little bit on your balance, and then I'll work more on the forward bend, as I said earlier. So my feet are together and my left foot's going to be in front of my right. So I'm just in this straight line, right? And if I have a straight line between my feet and the weight's even, I'm going to work on having my eyes closed. But, say it's really difficult for you, but you're interested in closing your eyes. Have something to hold on to when you need it. And you can always open the eyes, right? Before you fall, obviously, if that was happening, I would have my eyes open. Then bringing the left next to the right, and then stepping the right foot in front of the left foot. It's okay to have the feet crooked, but as you get the feet more lined up, it's more difficult. If you have very tight feet, and I see this often with people, this is so good. Just my eyes are closed, and when I'm moving, I have to stabilize, right, myself in many ways, but then it's also, stretching out the foot. So I think it's so good for the feet to, obviously to be barefoot, because it is manipulating the foot and the lower body. And then you can open the eyes and the right foot is next to the left. So I'm going to do like a 90-degree angle forward bend, which is really specific in stretching out the legs. So as you do this, maybe not holding as long as I am, but I'm going to hold it for close to a minute. So when I'm here, I want to move the pubic bone back, right? I want to move the inner thighs in, and then I'm forward. My arms could be in a lot of different positions. I'm just bringing my hands into my chest, like if I was holding like a light weight, and that's something that you could use as well in this position. But I'm not using a weight. I'm just bringing the weight forward if I can, and then as I'm forward here, you'll feel it very obviously in the legs. And what I like about this is that it's not a lot of stress on the spine, and it'll strengthen your lower back. So it's kind of like if you were picking something really heavy up off the floor, you get the weight close to you, but you keep your back straight, right? So just a few more seconds. You can widen the thighs if you're a person that always does that. Don't do it so often. Then press through the feet, bring yourself back up. And then when you come up, I'm going to come into extension, but I'm only going to be extending from my thoracic. So I'm keeping my chin neutral, but I'm lifting way up through my upper back, right? I'm trying to just lift through my thoracic, not so much, I'm not lifting the head. And you could, right? But just to make it more specific and extending the thoracic, get a much bigger lift here, and you'll feel, the effects of how it is stretching the body, and then coming back into a neutral level. So just come back into that side bend. So lean to the left, stretch out the right side, lift through the pubic, drop through the tailbone, get your legs to support you, bring yourself up, and then go to the right side, and then it's the left side that you're stretching out. And again, you can let the head tilt down. And if I was practicing on my own, I would definitely be spending more time on one side, as I need it. And then bringing yourself back up. But I'm going to get into you could do another round. So those of you that have osteopenia or osteoporosis, the forward bend that I just did, the 90-degree angle is what you can use again. But let's say you're wanting to do plow again, and you want to get into those types of positions. I'm going to use short holds in rounding my back, and that's really what happens in plow. It's weighted, but I would spend at least a couple weeks on, at least, a few times a week of just rounding my back in a standing position. If I didn't have osteoporosis, if I didn't have, a weak skeletal system, because you can fracture these things. But if you've been doing yoga long enough, you've been doing weight training, stuff like that, you're an active person, plow's a great position. It's a great pose to use. So when I'm here, I'm just going to come into the 90-degree angle just so that you have that, and that could be the position, right? But if I can, I'm purposely going to round my back where I'm not all the way down, right? And say you're like, whoa, it was so better with my legs straight, then you can do it that way, right? But I'm bending my knees slightly if I need to. I'm rounding my back, and then I'm coming up, and then I'm going to extend again, just from the thoracic, right? Not so much from the head tilting back, and then I'm back into a neutral position. But I'm going to change the angles a little bit, which will help manipulate your back a little bit more differently, because, again, the sides aren't perfectly even. So when I come forward, I'm going to be coming forward over my left leg. I'm touching my left foot or my shin or my thigh, purposely rounding my back. Again, if you're concerned, you could be in a flat back position, but on this angle, right? You could still do the position. So I'm in this hollow position, and then I'm rounding, I'm rolling up, and then now I'm going to extend on an angle, which offers a different stretch into the psoas and into the hip. Right? I'm just lifting through the torso. I'm not turning so much. I am a little bit on an angle. And then I'm coming back into the middle. I'm going to go to the right side. So I'm coming back to the right. I'm rounding my back. I'm touching my right foot with my right hand. I could be turning a little bit, or I could be fully rounded, right? So getting into my upper back. And then rolling myself up. Use your feet. Bring yourself up. And then be on a slight angle from right to left. So I'm leaning towards my left shoulder. Right? And just because you don't feel it as much on one side doesn't mean that it's not beneficial. It's just not as obvious in terms of stretching, but something you can certainly use. I say that because I don't really feel it as much, but I'm still gonna work it because there's layers to it. It's not just, there's something underneath a layer that could be more adjusted, right? But I'm gonna come forward one more time. I'm gonna round my back. I'm bringing my chin to my chest. As I'm forward, as I'm down, right? I'm letting my arms relax, right? I'm in this full rounded position. Right, rounding your back. Take 3 deep breaths. And then I'm rolling myself up into a standing position. And as I'm standing, right, practice bringing the tailbone down. Good thing to do is to take a picture from the side, get a profile of how you stand. Or just standing up against the wall. I'm not going to do that, but I'm standing up against the wall. I do this all the time with people that I work with privately. Is just basically organizing them to the wall. So one thing may not be touching the wall. That's what you can touch back. For most people that are a bit older, your shoulders are going to be rounded forward, right? But you can keep them back with the wall. You can keep the head back. And that's such a great thing. That's something that I highly recommend that you use throughout the day, if you're wanting to improve your posture. So I'm going to come down on my hands and knees. I'm going to use a Thearaband in terms of stretching out the shoulders. And I'm going to do a little bit more press work in terms of helping you to really get stronger. So rather than using a high repetition, I think it's better to use something that's a little bit out of just a little bit more difficult to do. And that could be a partial range of motion or a negative exercise in terms of the range. And that will help you get stronger. So come down on your hands and your knees. Have your hands just underneath your shoulders. Just press through the hands and protract the shoulders. And then let the chest move down in between the arms and protract again. Protract really strong. Use your hands, your fingertips. One more time, you can relax the chest down in between the arms, and then push, and make it longer if you can, and come up into plank pose. So lift the knees, hollow out the front of your body, move the weight around, right? Lift through the pubic bone, drop through the tail, right? And then come back down on the knees. As you come back down, I'm going to bring my arms down. I'm going to stretch my arms forward so my hips are over my knees, and I'm taking the arms forward if I can, and exposing more of my armpits. Like I could bring my chest down. I'm choosing to keep my chest in so that it's more specific for my shoulders. So I'm going to do a little bit of, more specific work for down dog. So walk the hands back towards underneath the shoulders and tuck the toes and just sit back a little bit on the feet, right? Come off of the toes and sit back where the feet are flat. And you can obviously skip one of the positions, but just going back a little bit repetitively in and out of this can be very helpful. So if it's a very difficult position, rather than just a long hold, I would move in and out of this, not super fast. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, hold it, and then change the position. And you got to be really patient, but over time your feet won't be so tight, and you'll be able to sit back further on your feet. And these are such great positions for your knees, your hips, your back, right? So I'm going to come up onto my hands. I'm going to take it up into down dog, but first I'm coming up into plank. And as I'm up in plank, right, I'm protracting my shoulders. I'm going to push back. As you push back, you can pedal the legs out. I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog. So coming forward, coming through, lifting my pubic bone, pulling back up into a down dog. One more time, I'll come forward, I'll come through. And you could do more of this, right? As you build up more practice, definitely could be more. And then back up into a down dog. And then coming back down on the knees. So sit in a comfortable position and if you have a yoga strap, great. If you don't have a TheraBand, you can use a yoga strap. So just getting the rotators to be a bit stronger and getting the serratus anterior to be stronger in terms of the range. This will help with, your pushing. So you could do down dog for years, and you're going to get better in terms of flexibility. But if you want to get stronger in pushing, right, shoulder work can help, right? So my hands are just if you only had a strap, this is what I'm doing. I'm pulling the strap apart. Really basic, but I could be changing the angles, and it could be active and relax for about a minute. This is what you could use. But if you do have a TheraBand, I'm going to take it out chest level, and I'm going to pull the band apart, right? And then bringing it in, and then pulling it apart, right? So my shoulders are getting more of a rotation. I'm getting more into my chest. I'm bringing it in. I'm bringing it apart. I said this, in my handstand classes, like, if you are really serious about getting your shoulders to be healthy, get a TheraBand, and if you don't have one, I'm sure someone has done some sort of PT. Just ask them if they have a TheraBand. A lighter band is better than a stronger band. So my band is a circle. So if I didn't have a lot of strength, I could just hold one side of the band, and then that'll make it easier. If I'm pulling both sides, there's more tension. But a light band is so good because it'll increase the range. And again, something like this, I'll do it with people, and they just want to do 2 or 3. But really you should do more like 10, 20, or 30. Hundreds of these over a course of the day is really what you really do need. Not just a little bit. A little bit is good. It's a good start. But to really get your shoulders to be stronger, and you're a dynamic person, whatever it's martial arts, or you like to rock climb, or you like really dynamic yoga. I have no affiliation with any TheraBands, but they're very good for your shoulders. So what we're going to do is come up into down dog. We're going to practice using these muscles, right? Using the serratus anterior, right? Hugging in to really get the shoulder to be stronger, and we'll work a little bit on your pushing strength, right? So take it up into a down dog. So my hands are turned out purposely for this, so I'm getting a rotation in the shoulder. So pull back through the hips, right? Pedal the legs out, right? And then coming forward, and as you come forward, I'm going to come down on my knees, and I will do a push-up. So my abdomen's in, I'm going to slowly, eccentrically moving down, moving down, moving down, moving down, moving down, and then my feet are down, right? But I'm going to come up and I'm going to do that again. So my feet are up off the floor. I'm slowly. Keep the connection. It's not so much strength, right? It's keeping the strength. It will be difficult. And then back down. And then coming up. And then one more time I'm going to do that. So really getting your abdomen involved. Shoulders forward. Shoulders can be retracted. And then back down. But as you're doing more pushing, right, rather than a high repetition, like I said, but being really concentrated, you won't wear and tear the body down, which is really common in contemporary yoga, not to give it a bad rap. But if you're doing that over and over and over again, at some point it probably will wear out. You want to change your patterns. So I'm going to go back up into a down dog. So as I go up into a down dog, pulling back through the hips, pushing, but just see the difference in pushing now. So come into plank, right? See the difference. Go back up into a down dog. I'm going to walk back with my hands towards my feet. So walking back into this forward bend, right? Be an extension if you need to, right? Have your elbows above your knees. I'm going to round my back like I did earlier and roll myself up into a standing position, right? I'm gonna bring my chin into my chest, bringing it in, concaving my back, right? Rounding my back, then back down, right? And then coming down on my hands, coming down on my knees. I'm gonna sit again, and I'm gonna do another exercise for your shoulders. So, could be done standing, you don't have to sit like this, but if you do need more floor work, get in the habit of practicing more on the floor. It's the least practiced, type of practice in yoga, but it's probably one of the most beneficial. It's really methodical, right? So I'm taking the band up overhead into a Y position, and then I'm stretching it out to the sides. I'm holding that. So I could just hold this statically, which works well, right? But I'm taking it up. And I'm moving it out, bringing it up, taking it out. And one shoulder will be tighter, one shoulder will be weaker. Bring it up to the sides. And even if you didn't have a band, you could do these exercises. And it works, it works as well. It works not as well, but it works. It's going to help get the shoulders to be stronger, more resilient. Up to the side, back up, and then one more time out, and then the last time up. So I'm going to do more of a straight arm position in terms of getting stronger, and it might be really hard to do, but like I said, the more stress you put on yourself for a short amount of time, I think is good, rather than doing something that you can do, but like I said, over and over again, right? Which is really, again, it's so common in the yoga world. Just getting yourself into positions that are way more challenging for a little bit of time, I think is way healthier. So I'm in the same position that I was when I was doing the strap work, but my hands are gonna be down. I'm gonna push through my hands, I'm gonna push through my feet. And you might not be able to lift up, but get in the practice of pushing really strong. Right, so I'm pushing, lifting the knees, and then coming down, right? Just for a few seconds, I'm going to come up. I'm going to do a few of these, but, bent arm strength is typically going to be more difficult. But these straight arm positions, you could do both every day, but straight arm is is more efficient. So push through the hands, protract the shoulders, lift the hips, use your hands, your fingertips, bring yourself down. Really good for the feet as well, this position. And say you're like, wow, it was so hard. And it might look like this, right? You're just pushing and you're like, I can't get up, I can't get up. It's okay. It's okay that it doesn't look like what I'm doing. It's just, actually doing it and really working at it will help. So one more time, if you can, push through the hands, lift through the hips. Keep the belly, keep the ribs in. Use your hands, your fingertips. Bring yourself down. And when you come down, we're gonna do some wrist work just so that your hands are getting stronger and more pliable. And if you're really liking being on your hands, it's so important to do. And even if you're not so much into hand practice, it's you want strong, able hands as we age, right? So the back of my hand's into the floor, but it's almost like I'm holding some tension here so that it's to stretch out the wrist. But I'm moving the weight back a little bit in space, right? And then I could also change it where my fingers are turned in, and then I'm moving the weight side to side. And I like working individually with hands at times because you could really see which hand might be more restricted for you. And there's ways to distract the forearm, there's ways to make this even more specific in adjusting the joint. So now my right hand's turned in, and I'm shifting the weight to the left, which makes it a much bigger stretch. But one side will be, like I said, easier, and one side will be more complex. But one last stretch I'm going to do, but let's do it in a standing position. So you could be creative and put your band or your strap on something, because when we stand up, we'll use it. I just want to be off your knees a little bit. I don't want you on your knees so much. So come up and do a down dog. And in a down dog, press back through the hips, right? Pull back through the thighs, walk the feet forward, right? Round your back. That's if you're coming up with a rounded spine. I'm going to grab my band just so that I have it when I come up. Rolling, 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 rolling up. And then I'm going to extend again just for my thoracic. And if I remember which angle which was really beneficial for me, then that can be the angle that you use a little bit more for some time, right? As it gets better, then maybe you don't need it so much. For me, I do struggle more with my left hip than my right. So I'm on this angle where I'm adjusting my left hip more, right? So I'm back, standing. I have the band, just more for more of a complete or a fuller rotation in the shoulder. I'm going to take the band up into a little bit of a wider position. Then I'm taking it back in space. It doesn't have to be as low as your bum, but it can be. So back up to the top position, and then back out and down, and then back up. And then bringing it back in space, right? Bringing it forward, bringing it back, wide shoulders, elevating the arms, elevating the band, taking it back. And like I said, like a higher rep, like 10 reps. Like if I do all of these together, I just keep it about 10. But if you just do one exercise, it could be 20, it could be 30, But if it's just really about getting to the number, I keep it on the lower end. I see people and they're just they just want to check the box off. I got to 30, everything is magical. It really doesn't work like that. You have to, be aware of how much is enough. So if I started with 10 and I did that for a month, consistently, well then I could bump it up to 12, right? And then I consistently did 12 for the next month, well then I could bump it up to 15 or something like that, and so on. But once you get to, again, 30, I don't think you really need more of that. I mean, you certainly could do that, but like I said, then you're tipping into just getting in kind of the same kind of, just grind, right? Which isn't always a great way for someone. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down on the floor and work a little bit more into getting into plow. But If you didn't want to do plow, you could use your strap and stretch out the backs of your legs. It's something that I use often in my classes. But gonna do some more strength work for your abdomen, and that'll help get you up into plow. So when I'm down, on my back, I'm gonna bring my feet off the floor, and I'm gonna lift up, and I'm purposely pushing into my knees. I'm pushing into my thighs, right? And how much you are bringing your legs in is how much you can handle. And then bringing your head and your shoulders down, and you can just relax for a few breaths. So just letting the knees kind of fall in or out. An easier exercise, but I think just as beneficial, as I'm taking my feet off the floor. My lower back is in the floor. My arms are straight up over my chest. I'm going to stretch my left leg forward and my right arm back. So I'm keeping my belly in, I'm keeping my ribs in, right? I'm gonna take the arms up over the shoulders. I'm gonna take the left arm back in space. The right leg is forward, the belly is in, the ribs are in. Then taking it back up, right arm overhead, left leg forward. If you find this easy, your lower back is off the floor, right? Keep it in, bring the hands over the shoulders, the knees over the hips. Take the left arm overhead, the right leg is forward. Bringing it in, the ribs in, bringing the hands up over the shoulders, right arm overhead, left leg forward, ribs in, hands over the shoulders, knees over the hips. Last time, bring the left arm overhead, the right leg forward, work, like I said, and then bringing the knees over the hips, bringing the arms down. So lift up into a bridge, so press down through the shoulders, lift up through the hips. Again, if it's really just tightness of your hamstrings that's stopping you from plow, right? You could work that more specifically like I did earlier in the 90-degree angle forward bend. If it's hip flexion, you can work more specifically on that. I didn't do much of that today, but if it's difficult for you to bring your knees into your chest, that's a big reason why plow is so difficult. So just getting that to be better can make a world of difference. So if you can't lift up into plow, what you could do is put a block underneath you, and that makes it easier. But you can use some momentum, and if you haven't done this in a while, like I said, 10-20 seconds is a good starting point. But I'm taking my legs up, and then I'm bringing my legs overhead, and really depends, on how your back is. With a morning practice, it might be that your feet are elevated. So my feet are elevated just to show you that. I could have my legs on a wall. I could have my legs on a chair. I'm never really concerned how much my legs are down. I feel a pretty large stretch through my legs and through my back. And if I wait long enough, just waiting, over time, I'll get my hips to stretch out more. And as they stretch out, my hamstrings stretch out more. It gets a little easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly roll my upper back into the floor, my mid back, right? Moving my low back, slow down to the floor, and then my pelvis and my feet, right? But what people don't realize too is the outsides of the hips can be really tight, and that can be a major factor of why it's difficult to take the legs back like that. But have your hands over your elbows, push down through your feet, lift your hips off the floor, pull the shoulders back. Take a couple deep breaths here. Then slowly bringing the upper back into the floor. Bring the mid back down, bring the low back, pelvis is down. Just take the feet a little bit wider than your mat and just let your knees carry to the left. So more of like a 90-90 stretch, but on your back, just to just to counter. I'm not teaching a relaxation today, but you could certainly do this and then get into your relaxation. That's the good thing about, this today's sequence is that you're already down. Definitely take some time to rest. You can take the knees up, let the knees drift over to the right side, so then the left knee is on the inside of the right foot. Some people like stacking it over. If you always do that, don't do it, right? Again, changing the way that you practice is really important. Like, not always doing it the same way. Even though the poses are relatively the same, right? Or your routine is the same, there's many ways you can change it. Like, change the pace, right? Or change the angle. Bring the knees up, and as you take the knees up, again, you could relax. You could put something underneath your knees. If you have a big arc in your lower back, something underneath your knees, like a chair or a bolster, is very, very good. If you have a posterior tilt and you have a kyphotic lower back, you can put something into your lower back, and that's not as common, but if you needed that, that's a great way. So I'm going to roll to one side just to come up. I'm going to use my hands. I'm lifting myself up into a seated position. So sitting nice and tall, sitting upright. I hope the class was good for you. I hope you feel great. I hope you feel centered, more at peace, And depending on what you want to produce is really what the practice should look like. You want a more energetic practice, it should be really physical, not incredibly repetitive, which is, again, really common. That's good to do. If you're going to do that, I would do that maybe once or twice a week. I certainly wouldn't do it every day. And I've heard some horrible injuries from that, because I've been involved with many trainings over the years. I would hate for that to happen to anyone, It's just not, it can be avoided. So have a beautiful weekend. Hopefully I'll have you soon in class again. I have a class tomorrow, and that's from 9:30 to 10:30 on Zoom Eastern Time. You could register for that class on my website. If you ever have any questions, direct message me. Send me a video. I'd love to help you more with your practice. I'm changing my Instagram accounts, and my Instagram account and my Facebook account will be jonwittyoga.movement. So if you're a subscriber to YouTube, thank you. If you like the videos, you can share them, you can like them. It helps me. All right, it helps my cause. I'd like to help more people with their wellness. All right, take care.